Good morning. I'm joined, as you can see, by our Mayor, Mayor Evans, and members of my command staff. Our local U.S. Marshal that assisted in the arrest we're going to be discussing. Chuck Salina was unable to be here this morning. On April 22nd, 2024, shortly after 3 a.m., David Treese III was working his job as a taxi cab driver for Associate Taxi when he was dispatched to 1st Street in the city of Rochester to pick up a fare. When he arrived on 1st Street, the suspect immediately entered the back seat of his vehicle, produced a handgun, and began to pistol whip the victim with the handgun while demanding money. The cab began to pull away while the suspect continued to pistol whip the victim. During the pistol whipping, the suspect paused to fire approximately 5 to 6 shots at close range, striking the victim multiple times in the body. The pistol whipping continued until the vehicle was in the 100 block of Bay Street, where Treese was able to stumble out of the driver's seat. He made it to North Sidewalk, where he collapsed and ultimately succumbed to his injuries. As Treese stumbled out of his vehicle, the suspect jumped into the driver's seat of the taxi cab and drove away at a high rate of speed. The suspect made it as far as Central Park, where he crashed into a tree and fled on foot, leaving the taxi cab behind. Officers became aware of the crash around 3:20 a.m. when a call came into 911 reporting a car crashed into a tree on Central Park. About an hour after the call for the MVA, a passerby called 911 to report an unresponsive male in the 100 block of Bay Street. Officers responding there found Treese on the sidewalk, clearly deceased from multiple gunshot wounds. During the preliminary investigation, they quickly determined that the motor vehicle accident and the shooting of Treese were connected. Ever since the early morning hours of April 22nd, the major crimes homicide investigators, led by Captain Umbrino, over here with my command staff, have been working the robbery-murder investigation. They were ultimately able to identify 36-year-old David Porter, a City of Rochester resident, as the person who murdered David Treese III. On April 23, 2024, the Rochester Police Department's tactical unit, led here by Captain Deerkop, over to my left, and the United States Marshal's Violent Fugitive Task Force, as I mentioned before, were tasked with locating Porter. During the early evening hours of April 23rd last night, Porter was located inside an apartment in the town of Chilai and was taken into custody without incident. David Porter has been charged with murder in the 2nd degree, robbery in the 1st degree, criminal possession of a weapon in the 2nd degree. Porter is prohibited from legally possessing a handgun in New York State due to 3 prior felony convictions and 3 prior misdemeanor convictions. In addition, Porter has also been charged with an outstanding arrest warrant out of the city of Rochester for criminal obstruction of breathing from a different incident. Because of the nature of the charges against Porter, it was required at arraignment this morning in Rochester City Court that he be held no bail, no release until the case is presented to a Monroe County Court judge. Additional charges relating to the murder of David Treese III may be presented to a grand jury at a later time. The quick arrest and apprehension of the suspect in this particularly brutal murder was made possible by the work of the investigators from the Major Crimes Unit, the assistance received by the Tactical Unit, the United States Violent Felony Fugitive Task Force, as well as the help of the residents of the City of Rochester who provided information pertinent to the case. I should also note I'm also joined today by First Assistant District Attorney Perry Duckles, who's going to be handling the case. Mayor Evans has a few words, and then we'll take some questions.
Thank you. Last night, I had the opportunity to talk to David Treese Jr.'s mother and father, and I conveyed to them my deepest condolences on this senseless, cowardly, and dastardly act that took place on Monday night. I want to thank the chief and his team, RPD, Major Crimes, Chuck Salinas, and the U.S. Marshal for bringing this suspect to justice quickly. This is what we can do when we all work together collaboratively. I want to thank the residents of Rochester for also cooperating with this investigation. On Monday, we issued a clarion call to people in the community to make sure that they work along with law enforcement to stop the senseless killings that we see in our community. And when we do that, we can bring people like the person that perpetrated this heinous act to justice. My thoughts are with the Treese family as they mourn this senseless tragedy, as well as his colleagues over at Associate Taxi. The last point I want to make is these individuals that drive cars, cabs, and ride sharing, and do ride sharing services, oftentimes they have other jobs. They do this because they want to make extra money. They should not have to put their lives in danger when they do these jobs. And Mr. Treese should not have died like this. No one deserves to die in such a brutal way. So our thoughts are with his family. And I want to encourage anyone on any other crime or nonsense that you see in our community to make sure that you report it, that you reach out, and know that we want to work to make sure that we end senseless violence in our community. We can do that by working together. The chief and I were out walking yesterday in neighborhoods. The last Tuesday of every month is our mayor on the block, and every resident that we run into says they want to end to senseless violence and they want to help and they want to be a part of the solution. We get these calls in the mayor's office regularly. So our thoughts are, again, with the Treese family, and we pray that justice will be served in this dastardly case of a person just working their job, driving their cab, that now has to be absent from their family. So we pray for them, and we pray for the soul of David Treese Jr. Thank you.
Okay, questions?
A question for both the chief and the mayor. Over the last couple of days since we learned of this, we've reached out to a number of cab companies who have told us they have pulled out of the city of Rochester because they have been concerned about the violence that cab drivers have experienced. Do you know that, and have you been working with them on ways to curb that?
Yeah, so, well, there's two different. So you have the ride share programs, which again, if the drivers follow the measures put in place by their company and aren't, picking up people, hailing them down, then there's some measures in place for their safety, to make sure that the person who's getting in, they have the name, they have an account, things like that. The taxis themselves are licensed through the city of Rochester. So, yeah, we deal with them on a regular basis, and as part of that licensing, we do keep them in touch with, safety tips, things to upgrade, having a camera on board is a great thing. Having GPS on board is a great thing. A lot of times you'll see taxis have the amber light on the back that says if this light is flashing, call 911. All those are great preventative measures. So hopefully we can avoid another tragedy like this one.
Were those measures in place in this case?
I'm not going to talk particulars on this because obviously we don't want to jeopardize the court case.
Mayor, do you want to address this? Just because I think there is this perception,
What don't?
in the city, there's a whole group of businesses who say we're not.
Well, I'm not familiar with any particular case. So I follow data and information. I have not been made of no cab company, and I'll double check this when I get back, has reached out to the mayor's office to tell us that they're specifically pulling out of Rochester. I will tell you that we have a very robust Uber and Lyft ride-sharing service in Rochester. Tons of people use Uber and Lyft in Rochester. In terms of the cab companies, I cannot comment in terms of them pulling out. They have not reached out to the mayor's office to tell me that. So I'm not aware of that. Our city clerk is the one that certifies the cab services. You might want to check with them to see if the numbers have been going on. But who are the two that said? Okay, if you can get them to me, that'd be good. But it's very hard for me to speak in hypotheticals because I haven't. The first I'm hearing that is from you right now.
We do.
We want a robust, but we have a very. I'm very supportive of Uber and Lyft. I advocated for them to come to the city of Rochester, and they do a good job serving Rochester. They offer lots of coverage, but we also want to make sure that you have taxis as an option as well. But I would say that if anyone is concerned with safety measures, they should reach out to myself and the chief, so that way we can address them. But the first time I'm hearing of anyone pulling out is you just saying that right now. So if you can get me those names, that'd be great, and then we can cross-reference that with the county clerk's, with the city clerk's office.
For Chief Smith, can you tell us at all about the evidence that led to David Porter being identified as a suspect?
No, we're going to have to wait for the trial for that. I'm sorry.
Can you tell us anything about weapons that may have been collected at the time of his arrest?
No, I can't get into specifics about that.
How about his history? You said he's a 3-time convicted felon. He had a warrant out, so had he been released on bail or bond and was awaiting something and didn't show up, or what are the circumstances surrounding the outstanding warrant?
So I don't know if it was a bench warrant or an arrest warrant. I can get clarification on that for you. That would make a difference. I just know it was an outstanding warrant.
This is a question for both Mayor and Chief. In terms of just the message to the community as well, to not stand for this, we've seen situations, obviously not related specific to this one, but where people are almost taking justice into their own hands, going after perpetrators. There's just an instance last night with the situation where the significant other chased after and then had guns drawn on them. How do you balance that message to the community to help support? What are the specific ways, and are these dangerous to follow in that route? Fire fell last year.
Yeah, I mean, we're again speaking the broad spectrum hypotheticals. Everyone certainly has a right to defend themselves, but you need to be very cautious. At what point are you no longer defending yourself and now you become the aggressor? It is a very fine line. I would recommend everyone, if you can, call 911 and do what you need to do to keep yourself safe. But don't try and turn the tables on your attacker.
We were here Monday with the other 2 cases. I know you made an arrest yesterday on the second case. The first case of the man who was shot in front of his home or in the driveway. What can you share with us about that?
Sure. So the incident on Day Place, all the parties in that have been identified. We are working with the district attorney's office as far as what charges would be appropriate. That was an isolated incident. Like I said, the parties involved knew each other, so we can say there's no danger to the public. But again, yeah, so we stood here Monday, 3 homicides. We stand here today, Wednesday, 3 arrests, or three case closures anyway. Again, a credit to not only the major crimes unit for coming up with the information, but then the tactical unit and all of our partners for taking people into custody.
So that first incident, is it justified shooting, or is that what you're investigating, or if it's not an arrest?
That, again, that's not something we determine. We present facts to the DA's office, and the DA's office has to determine what course we're going to follow. So we'll refer to them at this point on this.
All right.
Given that homicide, I'm sorry.
Do you want to address that?
With regards to Dade Place?
Yeah.
I think the circumstances of Dade Place warrants more consideration between the police and our office before charges may or may not be filed. It was one of those types of incidents where the circumstances are not what we normally see.
Given that homicides, Mr. Mayor, for you, are nearing where they were this same time last year, and yes, they were down year over year in 2023, are you at all concerned that we're going to now begin to start to see a rise as we head into warmer months?
Let me be clear about homicides, and you should I say this regularly. One death is too many, so I'm always concerned anytime we have even one homicide. As you know, we've had the numbers that you are citing this year. 2 of those homicides are the result of people who have died in previous years. We had the 3 that were killed by the coward that decided to run their vehicle on Lake Avenue near the Kodak Theater, and then we had a tragedy with a baby who died after they ingested fentanyl. So you can see by me the way I'm able to recite these without even looking at notes. We worry about every single homicide. So when someone says the numbers matter, but you know what matters more than the number to me? David Treese Jr., Julius Greer, who was the first homicide on my first day in office. So of course I'm concerned about the numbers. but I'm more concerned about the lives that are lost. But we're going to do everything we can to continue with prevention, intervention, and suppression, but the only way we can do that is through community help. I believe that we will continue to see a reduction in homicide, as we have seen over the last 2 years, as long as we stick with our strategy and as long as the community continues to do the great things they are doing in terms of cooperating, calling major crimes, calling the mayor's office. On my way out, I got to call some folks back who want to deliver tips that I then can pass on to the police department. So we are always concerned with homicides, but we have to do everything we can to make sure that trend goes down. We don't want to see those numbers go up. But I ask that people remember the names of the people. Taxi cab driver, 45 years old, never bothered anybody in his life, would give the shirt off his back according to his mother and father and his colleagues. But he's dead because of a coward. And I think that that's what people need to remember, because it's David Treese today. It could be anybody else in this room. And this is why people have to speak up. Because this individual that did this has a propensity to do this. And if you know someone has a propensity to wreak havoc and use guns and all those things, it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that we report it. The last point I want to make, too, is because it was asked about vigilante justice. We don't want vigilante justice. That's what we have these guys for. Call us. If you have the information, we're going to do it. We don't want vigilante justice in our city. Okay? This is why we have the men and women in uniform. This is what your tax dollars pay for. We don't want anybody taking the law into their own hands.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll just wrap that up by saying we here at the Rochester Police Department are just getting started. So we're going full speed. Watch what we do now.